Let us listen to these words from the reading I have chosen for this week's affirmation and prayer. This is on the topic of courage. There are three kinds of human courage: blind, passive, and dynamic. Blind courage doesn't count the cost until it finds itself faced, horror-stricken with the bill. Passive courage is the strength of will to adjust to reality, whatever it may be. And dynamic courage is the strength of will not only to accept reality, but to confront it with another reality of one's own making. There is a fourth kind of courage, not human, but divine. Divine courage comes from living in the awareness of God's presence within, and in the realization that He is the sole reality. Live more in Him, for nothing and no one can touch what you really are. Now let us repeat this affirmation together. First, we'll do it loudly, and then a little bit more softly, and finally whispering. I live protected by God's infinite light.
I live protected by God's infinite light.
So long as I remain in the heart of it,
So long as I remain in the heart of it,
nothing and no one can harm me.
nothing and no one can harm me.
I live protected by God's infinite light. So long as I remain in the heart of it, nothing and no one can harm me. Now whispering, I live protected by God's infinite light. So long as I remain in the heart of it, nothing and no one can harm me. And finally, mentally, putting our attention at the point between the eyebrows, I live protected by God's infinite light. So long as I remain in the heart of it, nothing and no one can harm me. I look to Thee for my strength, Lord. Hold me closely in Thy arms of love. Then, whatever happens in my life, I shall accept with joy. And finally, I wanted to read a sloka from the Bhagavad Gita. This is the second chapter, and Krishna is exhorting Arjuna to fight the battle. And he's given Arjuna many different reasons, and finally he comes to this reason also. He says to Arjuna, even when viewed personally, from a standpoint of one's dharmic duty, there is no occasion for grief or hesitation. Nothing is more propitious than for a Kshatriya whose duty is to fight for righteousness, to battle for what is right and true. Blessed and fortunate are you if you must give even your life for such a cause, for death will open to you the gates of heaven. And Swami Kriyananda gives a short commentary, which I'd also like to read. He says, a slain warrior who has fought fearlessly in a good cause goes to heaven as a result of having held to a higher ideal than material existence. His willingness in a righteous cause to sacrifice his lower reality for a higher one entitles him to enjoy the beautiful astral regions after death. I chose that reading from the Gita and wanted to say a few words to it because in the sense of this situation that all of us together are finding ourselves, society as a whole, the world as a whole actually, is finding ourselves faced with a great challenge. And this challenge has been affecting some countries very strongly. And perhaps India might be spared some of the trials that some of these other countries are facing, but perhaps not. And of course, when we're faced with a situation like that, it's natural to feel a certain sense of anxiety, perhaps even some fear, some worry. And particularly also there's this sense of uncertainty. We don't know what's around the corner. We don't know if more difficult times are coming, and I think we should expect them probably. We don't know if we're going to have to extend this experience that we've all participated in today of being in curfew. Is that going to be extended? Are we going to have to do more of that? And I think of all of these things, it's that uncertainty that is somewhat upsetting to people. But on a spiritual level, it's reminding us that life itself is uncertain. Here we have packaged and encapsulated in this chapter in our life something I think all of us will remember in the years ahead. We're encapsulating the dilemma and the situation and the life experience that all of us face every day, but we don't always realize it or remember it, that life is uncertain, and the one certainly only that we have in our life, especially for those of us who realize our presence as God's children, children of light, is our relationship with God. And it reminds us of what is really truly important in life. And it drives us back within, if we're a devotee, to contemplate that. Now, how do we face that? Well, we face it as does a Kshatriya faces it. It's our duty to face that which comes to us in life. And we face the foe. But I ask the question, who is the foe? What is the foe that we're facing? Now you might think, well, we're facing this coronavirus, that's the foe. But I don't think so. Yes, you'd have to say yes, it's what stimulated this battle that we're facing. But the real foe are those feelings inside of ourselves, those feelings of worry, those feelings of fear, perhaps even some of us, that anxiety that comes, of uncertainty that comes, or what are we going to do? You hear about people rushing to grocery stores and panic buying and protecting themselves because life is uncertain. And that inward battle that all of us must face, and what Arjuna, of course, is symbolic, that battle that he faced at Kurukshetra. That battle is, or that opponent of fear and worry and selfishness, of thinking about ourselves first, this is the real foe. And we cannot turn away from that battle. It's here, we have to fight it, and we have to ask ourselves, how will we fight it? Well, I think the first thing we have to do is to be able to accept the reality that we are facing a battle in life here. We're facing a battle outwardly, yes, but we're also facing whatever reaction of the lower nature, perhaps, that is stimulating within us. And we have to face that battle, and we cannot run away from it. Because if we try to, it's going to follow us. A story that Swami Kriyananda used to like to tell in this regard, it was more from his generation's time, there was a story of a fellow in the 1930s who he could see the winds of war. And he was a European probably. He saw the winds of war coming his way, and he wanted to get away from them. And in time before it descended upon him and trapped him. And so he was looking, where can I go? And he thought, well, there must be a peaceful place that I can escape this. And so he found it. So he thought. He went to the Pacific and he settled on the island of Guam. Well, those of you who know your history realize that the island of Guam there, east in the Pacific, east of the islands of Japan, turned out to be one of the centers of the Pacific battle of the World War II between America and Japan. It was chaotic, and basically that island was leveled, and most people there, certainly a good significant number of them, lost their lives. So he found himself in the midst of that struggle that he himself was thinking he was going to be able to escape. And so consequently, that's perhaps a story, I don't know if it was true, but it symbolizes what we face is we have a certain battle, and the battle is the virus. The virus is going to come, and the virus is going to pass through. It's going to infect some, maybe others not. It'll pass through, but that's not the real enemy. The enemy is what that virus stimulates in within ourselves, because that battle is going to always be there until we face it in one fashion or another. A wonderful phrase that was used by Sister Gyanamata. She said, if you cannot find God in the place where He has put you, where do you expect to be able to find Him? Where has God put us? Well, He's put us right here, right now, in this situation, and you could say, I guess, this is our karma. This is the battle that we have drawn to ourselves by our lives and our life's experience, and this is the battle that we must fight. And so consequently, that outward battle that we think we're fighting is just not the real battle at all. It's that inner battle, and we have now a wonderful, if I might not be so bold in saying, opportunity to be able to confront that, whatever demons you might say that battle stimulates in within us. And so consequently, we want to ask the question, how do we fight that battle? Well, I was giving a class, perhaps some of you joined me yesterday evening, is that we have to find, first off, when you fight a battle, you have to fight it affirmatively. If you expect to be victorious in the battle, you cannot be in retreat before you even begin. And so consequently, we have to embrace the battle, not in the sense that we necessarily want that battle, but we have to embrace it as that's the reality that's before us. It's come to me. I didn't necessarily want to have this battle, but it has come to me. Yes, maybe my karma drew that to me, but here it is. And I must accept that and then see it in the sense of this is my opportunity as a warrior, as a Kshatriya, to be able to fight this battle in the right spirit. And so we must approach whatever our battles are in life with a sense of affirmation, affirmativeness, is saying, yes, this is what has come of itself, let it come. And then it is my duty then to respond to that affirmatively in the highest way that I know how. And if we go forward in that way, then we draw upon forces greater than ourselves to help us fight that battle. And also, when we go forward into battle affirmatively and saying yes, we summon up energy within ourselves. It's an energetic response. Isn't that so? If I say, yes, let's go, let's fight this battle, and you go in there, you can feel the energy starting to flow within you. And when we have and go forward and have energy in our approach, we begin, one, to become magnetic, because energy draws magnetism to us. And with magnetism comes creativity, into what should I do? Should I go left? Should I go right? We begin to draw inspiration so that we can aspire or be inspired to creatively be able to approach that which we're facing. And this going forward in that spirit of affirmation is a mark of the reading that I shared today of courage, going forward with courage. And now I want to go reiterate those 4 types of courage that Swami writes about. The first one, he said, yes, we should have courage. It's good to have courage. We want to be able to go forward, but the first type of courage is blind courage. In other words, just going forward and demonstrating my courageousness of not retreating. I'm going to go forward, but perhaps unthinkingly. And so you find people now, we're faced with this situation of the virus and infection. We're given many different instructions by experts and epidemiologists how to go forward. And today we've had this curfew, Janata curfew today. And we sometimes go forward without thinking of the larger reality. And so consequently, we maybe take the attitude, well, it's not going to, I'm going to go forward and I'm going to behave in any old way that I choose, and it's not going to affect me because I have courage on my side and God is on my side, and I'm a devotee, and so I can do anything I want and God will protect me. What Master said when he had devotees or disciples in his ashram that would just be reckless in their behavior, demonstrating to their mind at least that God will protect me, Master will protect me, so therefore I can go forward and do anything unthinkingly. Master said, well, see if they drive a car off the cliff and see if I'm going to protect them. No, I'm not going to protect them. We have to expect his disciples to use their common sense and use the rational brain that has been given to them to do the right thing. Because you see, this is just to go forward and do any old thing in the sense that, well, I'm a warrior for righteous cause, I'm a warrior for God, is not, it's courageous on some base level, but that's not what we want. We want to take it to the next level beyond that. And so consequently, in facing what we're facing today in this practical reality of spreading infection, let's use common sense. Let's follow the rules. Let's do the distancing that's been recommended. Let's if necessary at times, wear the mask. Do all of those things that those who are experts in this have been encouraging us to do, not from a position of being fearful that, oh my God, if I don't distance myself, I'm going to be infected. No, doing it in a sense of common sense participation to accomplish and fight our battles intelligently. Arjuna, I'm sure, he was a great warrior, but he was not stupid. And he knew how to fight, and he knew how to use his weapons. And so our weapons on this inner battle are our intelligence, our discrimination, our common sense, and our ability to put out energy in a way that is going to be useful and helpful to the larger cause. Now, the second type of courage that Swamiji mentions is, he calls it passive courage. It's the willingness to fight and doing our duty in a sense, but it's not necessarily creative, but because it doesn't have the degree of energy that the larger courage has. But nevertheless, it's being able to recognize the reality around us and play my part. And I think this is probably the run-of-the-mill type courage that I would hope we could expect from all of us, is to face the reality, realize that this has come to us, accept that I have a part to play in this battle, and then to do my duty, knowing that through my efforts, joined in hand to the efforts of everybody else, we're going to be victorious in this. And so we face that courage also. We face those battles of that foe within, and we realize that yes, it doesn't make sense to be fearful. What does that have to, how is that going to help? My fear is not going to help. I can face that fear and be more successful if I face that. I can put worry aside because I know that it does not really do any good. And so we can approach those demons within ourselves with common sense approach, and that in itself draws divine aid to us. And then Swamiji speaks of a third type of courage, which is a dynamic courage. And he's saying, do more than just your duty, but summon up the courage to draw even more energy to yourself, that creativity to be a solution. In other words, I would interpret that to say, to reach out, not just to be courageous yourself, but through your efforts to serve other people, to draw greater positive energy into a solution rather than being an effect, or not just being passively going along with the situation, but actually rising up to a higher level so that we're bringing energy into the situation, bringing creativity, and for ourselves too, seeing those negative tendencies in ourselves, saying, yes, I'm going to fight, and I'm going to fight that battle inwardly, dynamically. And so this is what he's saying there. Now, these are the three levels of human courage. And we can all have that expectation and hope to be able to rise to that level. But Swami also adds this fourth element of divine courage. And this is secure in the knowledge that God is with me in my efforts and acting from that base. Now, what separates human courage, those first three, from divine courage is this one thing. Human courage has faith in God, or at least for the devotee, there's faith in God. Divine courage is fueled by knowledge of God, knowledge and the experience of the presence of God within, and acting in that presence of God. And summoning obviously first that power of God within us, and in that power of actual experiential feeling that God's presence is within me, in that going forward and knowing that God's power is behind me, God's power is protecting me. There's a story from the Bible, the Old Testament, which many of you know, the story of how David slew the giant Goliath. And the armies, the army of the Israelites were fighting the army of the Philistines. And Goliath was a mammoth man, a great warrior. And everybody was afraid to fight him. He was probably as high as the ceiling. I don't know. He was, 2.5 meters maybe high and broad. And he challenged the Israelites to send out a warrior to fight him. And the winner of that battle would be declared the winner of the war. And that way they would save the slaughter of the warriors on either side. And Goliath stepped forth. And the Israelites needed to choose a warrior, but who would they choose? And everybody looking at Goliath said, they hesitated. But David, a shepherd boy, stepped forward and said, I will fight, I volunteer, I will fight the battle. Now, that seemed preposterous on some level, but David was filled with the presence of God. And he was only a shepherd boy, but he had the divine presence of God with him. And so the elders of the Israelites, they accepted him as their, I imagine with some trepidation, of course, but they accepted him as their representative. And David strode forth, and they asked him, David, will you not take our armor? Facing him, and David says, no, I do not need that armor. His armor was God's presence. And he went down into the field to meet Goliath, and he brought with him simply a handful of stones, about the size of an egg, handful of stones in his sling. And he fought Goliath and faced him, and he said, I faced you, Goliath, and it is not with my strength that I shall fight, but it is with the power of God that I will slay you. And of course, Goliath laughed at that, but it was true. With that sling and the stone, he cast that stone at Goliath and hit him in the head and slayed him, and then took Goliath's sword and took off his head. And I wonder, can you really call that courage? I mean, obviously, it was very courageous of what David did. But David felt himself to be in the presence of God. God was within him and had chosen him. And so consequently, it didn't take any courage in the sense of my ego. The sense of I need to summon up my inner little self up into a courageous state to be able to face this Goliath. No, David was in the presence of God, and when we are in the presence of God, we become a vehicle, an instrument for God's power. And this is the essence of why when Dr. Lewis was out in that boat, that we know that story, he remembered when the storm came up and his boat was about to capsize, he remembered masters telling him, when you're in trouble, Summon up the Om. Look into the spiritual light. Summon that power, because when you are in Om, in the presence of God, the divine presence of God, nothing can touch you. And that's what Dr. Lewis did, of course. He put himself into the vibration of Om, and he was saved, because that's God's power. The power of God's presence is what Om is. The power of God's presence is this light we speak of. And that light is there. That sound is there also. It's there all the time. When you meditate, you look into the darkness, but look behind the darkness. His master said he wanted to know what was behind the darkness of closed eyes. And he looked until he saw the light behind the darkness, and he saw these yogis. We are the Himalayan yogis. Remember that story? And he felt that light, and it filled him. And same thing as when he was suffering from Asiatic cholera. His mother told him to mentally bow to the Guru of the picture of Lahiri Mahashaya up on the wall. And he mentally bowed to Lahiri Mahashaya, and there's a flash of divine light. And he instantaneously, he was healed of that disease. And he bowed down to touch his mother's feet for summoning that prayer that she was putting out to Lahiri Mahashaya. And then he realized that his mother had saw that light too. And this is what we need to consider. And this opportunity for this battle that we're facing here reminds us of something that we need to do at all times. Live in the presence of God's grace. Live in the power of God. And that power of God is available and there for us. It's not far away. God is with us all the time. And as if we're willing to call that summon of God, of that presence of God to us, we find that we can do remarkable things. And so I say, is that really courage? It's not this little I that is acting. That's when it is. That little I is summoning up the will to act. That's good, because we must take the steps toward it, but that's human courage. We start with the human courage, summoning up that energy, but all the while realizing that it's God's power that ultimately is going to take us to victory. And that's what the situation we find ourselves in today. This is what it can remind us of in everything that we do. We cannot run away. Face your anxieties, your sense of dis-ease that's coming from the sense of we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know, you don't know, who knows? Nobody knows. There's a larger karma at play, but we need not be subject to that mass karma alone. All of us, of course, are affected by it, but we can rise above that mass karma because we have the power of the Gurus behind us, and we have the strength of individual will to attune ourselves to that divine power that's being represented. God's power, but also Guru's power is being represented. And let's summon that power and use it as our divine umbrella to shelter us from the winds and fury of whatever's going to come down the road ahead of us. And let's cooperate as a team, a sangha, but also as citizens with the larger society. Let's work together, and let us, by cooperating with ourselves, cooperating with God's grace, be an inspiration. In this way, you see, we serve in that way. There's not perhaps much that we can do outwardly in our service. Not all of us are caregivers or doctors or people that are on the front lines in that way, but all of us can serve as instruments and channels for the divine and send our blessings and support out and be a part of the larger solution and not be part of the problem. And then I think what we'll find that as a society, as a country, and as an individual, we're all going to prosper, and we'll be able to conquer those demons, or at least drive them into the corner and away, drive them into the way, because wherever there is light, darkness cannot live. And so let's fill our lives with the light. Let's represent the light. Let's let that light shine through us and share that light with everybody. Now, I'd like to conclude our satsang today by singing a song with you, or inviting you to sing a very simple song, or maybe really it's a chant that some of you have heard us tell the story of this chant. It's related to the troubles, physical troubles that a member of Ananda community went through 20 plus years ago, and she eventually succumbed to a disease. But she was diagnosed with this disease 10 years prior to her passing and was given only a year maximum to live. But Swami Kriyananda told her at that time, when she asked him what she should do, and he said, don't buy into the thought of the disease. Oh, I'm sick, I can't do that. Oh, I should limit how I do this or that because of this disease. He says, don't buy into the reality of that disease. Be affirmative. And in your affirmation, summon up the energy to increase your magnetism. And at that time, there was a friend of hers who, her name was Angelica, and wrote a song or a chant that this lady who was suffering with the disease began to repeat over again through the coming years, and eventually 10 years, until she ultimately did succumb to that disease or something related to that disease. And it's simple. This is a simple song, and I'd like you to say it with me. It starts out, we say, God's power, vitality, good health, and strength flow through me, flow through me, flow through me. So it's a statement of reality. This power is flowing through us, but it's also an affirmation, flow through me. So it's both. And this also is accompanied by a little a melody that goes as such. God's power, vitality, good health, and strength flow through me, flow through me, flow through me. Now, please join me. God's power, vitality, good health, and strength flow through me, flow through me, flow through me. God's power, vitality, good health, and strength flow through me, flow through me, flow through me. God's power, vitality, good health, and strength flow through me, flow through me, flow through me. God's power, vitality, good health, and strength flow through me, flow through me, flow through me. God's power, vitality, good health, and strength flow through me, flow through me, flow through me. Once more, God's power, vitality, good health, and strength flow through me, flow through me, flow through me. Say that. Repeat it. God's power, God's vitality, good health, and strength flow through me, flow through me, flow through me. And project that affirmatively, and you'll find yourself drawing the power of God to you. You'll feel your magnetism, your aura increase, and you'll feel yourself to be a true Kshatriya. a warrior for the divine light. God's blessings to all of you. Now, before you leave, I would like to share an announcement or two. We're having a series of classes, and Diana G. and myself. I held the first one last night at 7:30, and I'll hold the second one tomorrow night, Monday night, at 7:30. And I invite you to join us. Look on the Ananda India Online website, .org website, and you'll find there the schedule of all these activities. And so there's a list of days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so forth. And look under Monday, and you will find that listed for 7:30 p.m. I invite you to join us at that time, and we're discussing the topic of magnetism and attitude in order to strengthen us in this time of difficulty, and exploring how do we do that? What is that about? And we're going to explore various topics. I'd like to particularly invite those of you who are elders to join us tomorrow night, because I want to speak as part of tomorrow's discourse specifically to that, because as we know, elders are being threatened a little bit more, and I'd like to give a few suggestions on that regard. Also, secondly, that we are having programs throughout the week, every day, for you to join us and join in on anandaindiaonline.org. And so become a part of the Sangha, become a part of the solution, and build up our strength, and together feel ourselves addressing this situation that we're all facing in a positive way. It keeps our magnetism strong, and it also, through keeping our magnetism strong, it gives us an avenue by which we can serve society as a whole in a better way, and help all of us as an individual, as a nation, as a society, live and approach the difficulties that we're facing in the light. God bless all of you, and I hope to see you tomorrow night. Joy to you.